And I'm recording. Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to participate in today's forum. I'm Coach Julio, and before we start to discuss together, I want to just say a couple of things, and I wrote it down today just so I can be somewhat coherent. And if like I said earlier before we started recording, I am personally nervous, but my nervousness does not stop me from doing the right thing and walking through the fear. And I'm usually capable of walking through the fear after talking with people, telling them that I'm fearful and I'm nervous, and then that helps me make a better decision. And that's pretty much going to tie into what this whole forum is about. It's going to be about discussion conversations. So let me just share with you what I have. So I want to again say thank you for making the time to participate in today's open forum. I wanted to acknowledge that your actions speak volume, and will also note you are lifting the voice of many within your professional and personal sphere of influence. So you literally represent more people than just your physical self. That's how I look at it. The main purpose of this forum is, and it's flexible, is to discuss ways we can be part of the solution with practical actions that can be taken today, not tomorrow, but today. The process begins with us sharing and identifying commonalities and concerns. So I want to preface this that it's going to be a difficult conversation for some more than others. Like for me, I already said I'm nervous, and but what I realized throughout talking more about it, not just with my clientele, friends, and family, is that it's a little bit easier to discuss than the very first time. And so what am I talking about? What is that? It's the elephant in the room. It's racism and how fitness and health leaders can contribute to long-lasting change. I hope you heard that last part. I'm referring to long-lasting change, and we all can make a difference. We are in a very unique position, speaking health and fitness professionals, due to the diverse group of people we service, whether they're clients, athletes, boot camp attendees, they go to yoga, whatever they are, we are in a very special, unique position, again, because of the diverse clientele that we have and the relationships we build. And some of us may also have platforms on social media that can reach more people than we physically service. So what I'm trying to get at is that our actions, not just our words, our actions have more power than you may give credit to. I was reminded today that health and fitness pros have a very special trait called empathy. I want to say that again. I haven't heard that word in a while. We have in our industry a very special trait called empathy, and when speaking with people. And if you're not aware, once they recognize that when we first initiate a conversation with someone we're just starting to work with, and then from there, guess what we build? We build trust, and then we start to build a relationship. And for a lot of them, they start to look up to us and talk to us about their most private things, whether it's a wedding, his birth, a lot of events. Hopefully you can do this, you understand what I'm saying. So once again, I return back that we're in a very unique position to be of service and to use our platform, whether it's just one-to-one or social media, whatever you choose, to make a difference and to leverage it. That is why I believe we can make a difference and initiate the conversation. Initiate the conversation. It will be uncomfortable. However, I suggest to initiate conversations about racism and to do so without any expectations. I am personally not trying to change minds. I am trying to plant seeds and allow people to process what's happening and what we discuss. That's very important. I have no interest in changing minds. I just want to take advantage and utilize any opportunity to speak about just like this and plant some seeds. And then the process of changing minds or going from there, everyone is in a different place. Hi, Lindsay, welcome. For many, they may have years of bias or misunderstanding of systemic racism and who it affects. That's that process part. This applies to family, friends, peers, co-workers, and it goes out from there. So I want to say that again, and there's a reason why I'm starting with families, friends, peers, co-workers, and your clients. For many years, some of them may have biases and or misunderstanding. However, I return back to, if I get to initiate a conversation, I'm not interested in changing their mind. I'm just planting seeds. What do I mean by planting seeds? That means that there's a high probability that we can cultivate future conversations. That's a great start. From that point on, you, myself, whether it's in the family, friends, clients, and going out, we will be viewed as a resource. We're already the expert in what we do, but if we initiate that conversation and move on, they will know, because we have that trust from our past history, we could be viewed as a resource, someone to discuss, or to just help them have a shift in their thinking. It's that process. So I'm going to share really briefly what happened to me and why I decided to host this forum. And I hope you can identify some of the things I'm going to say. You know, I was hesitant to posting anything online regarding the racism and anything to that nature. I was very hesitant. And I'll share with you. Personal safety, retribution. Am I going to lose followers? Is it money loss? Some of you may identify with that, or you may know some people in your network that have businesses and you spoke about it and they're like, I'm not going to post it online. So that being said, and I'm one of those people that have lots of trouble finding words to express how I feel. And it takes time for me to come up with the words. And then why I posted what I did and why I had this forum is that I decided to look at not as what am I going to lose, it's more about what opportunities can come about from it. So I had that shift. There's more opportunities than whatever I lose. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, and that helped me. Last Monday, I was with a client, and that was the day after, you know, the weekend. And I was very fearful of this question. First person, how are you? She was white. She's my client. Known her for a long time. Guess what I said? I said, how are you? And she said, I'm not feeling good. I didn't have sleep, you know? And then, and I said, all this thing's going on. And then I said, she said, how do you feel again? And I said, well, I'll be honest. I am mentally exhausted and physically exhausted. That's what I said. So you see, that was the initiation of the conversation. It was honest. And from that moment on, I realized the power of just me starting within my sphere of influence. And then the next question she said to me is like, what can I do? How can I help? And then I just thought about it. And I said, starting a conversation like this is huge. It's one of the biggest things that we can do. And then I said, it's okay to say, I don't know what to do. I said, that's fine. Because I can say that too. Many people are like that. Her intention is good. She doesn't know. And I returned back. I said, why don't you try speaking about this with your family first? And then you go out. That's a start. But hopefully you can kind of feel what I'm saying. I'm not asking for anyone to go out to the world with a bullhorn. I just want you to start with your family. And it all started with that question, how are you doing? Because it was very awkward. It's not easy, right? So that's a big start. So what I'm getting at, it's easier to not discuss, right? It's easier to say, hey, let's go work out, let's go do this, easier. Or it's easier to say when someone asks the question, how are you doing? I feel a little bit uneasy about what's going on. And then you listen. And then you can ask them, do you feel uneasy? And they may say yes. And then they may follow up, what can I do? And then that's when we can say, you know, the conversation is the biggest thing we can do, is to talk about it and be part of the solution. So with that being said, I hope you got something out of my share, and I want to just introduce the group. So if everyone can go around and introduce themselves, if you want to say if you're with a gym or club or not, and we can go from there. Who wants to start? Hello? And who are you?
I don't know who you're talking to. Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm Lindsay. I'm the fitness director at Republic. I work with Julio for over 5 years now.
Oh, welcome.
And this is my cat.
And that's her cat. Tony?
All right, I'm Tony Rich. I met Julio through the Oak Square YMCA, and I still do some work with the Oak Square YMCA and a couple of other local facilities around Boston. But I primarily run Event Horizon Endurance Sport, which is a company I founded, and we train and coach athletes for competition, endurance sports competition, as well as digital media and podcasting.
Yes, he's a good man. Brock?
How you doing, Julio? I'm Brock from Republic Fitness. I'm a freshman trainer there. I didn't get to train very long before we got shut down. So just trying to check in with everybody, and thought this was an important meeting to join. So here I am. Nice to meet everybody.
Welcome. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I have my own business. I work 100% online. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like maybe you can all relate to this. I got a little frustrated with the sets and rep count. I felt like I was counting sets and reps and doing programming, and I really wanted to dig deeper. And so I developed some different holistic programs to help people really become happier, healthier humans. And I feel like that's needed now more than ever. So anytime I'm hesitant to post or do something online, I say to myself, this is the most important thing. And you never know what you might say that might hit someone the right way and cause change. So never be afraid to do that. I don't know if I went on a tangent there, but.
No tangent. Thank you. Regina?
Hey folks, my name is Regina Hayes. I am the Health and Wellness Director at the Parkway YMCA. And apparently, get this, we went to grade school together at Boston Latin, but we didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Only to find that he's like a year or two older than me. I'm the younger one, of course, can't you tell? No. No, but we've come together in unique circumstances, and he's a good dude, and I needed to be part of this. So I already spoke my piece on why I'm excited and the things I hope to talk about today. And Julio, you said one thing that stood out to me. You said fear of what saying something might do to the clientele that you have, and or the how people might perceive something that you may say, and that is a big thing, because people can interpret many different ways, and I think that it can often be a fear, sometimes maybe a fear of mine, is that you want to be politically correct and not say the wrong thing, but sometimes you don't say anything at all, and that's in legal system they call the act of omission, right? So not saying something when you should say something, and you're held responsible for that, and I started to think about that in these terms of racial inequities, and how being a white person, where are my boundaries? I've never really pushed those limits. I've never really, talked about these things in the face of others. You just think, oh, well, it'll pass, or, whatever you think. But I've never really pushed those boundaries to really find out if I can still be politically correct and push boundaries and make mistakes along the way and apologize for mistakes when I make them. But it's all in an effort to help and do the right thing. And I think we all do have a little bit of that in us. We have empathy. We want to help folks. So, and I think it's from the sound of the bunch that we have here, we have a good network in which to do so.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So before I get to Tony, I just want to throw this out there regarding systemic racism inequities. And what I hear is I don't want to politicize that it's political, not you. And that is true, but it's actually a human rights issue. So they're overlapped. So for me, myself, the human rights issue overshadows any political any political innuendos that may come out of it. If that may today, maybe a year ago it would have been different, but today. So if I share, like I'm sharing openly and sincerely about how it affects me, and then I open the conversation, because again, when I was asked how are you, and I was honest, I said I'm mentally exhausted physically because of all this stuff. I also mentioned that we were acknowledging that something is happening, and then the conversation was the tool, the bridge that was going to help us. And there's nothing political about that. It's more about discussing human rights and racial and equities. And once you speak about it, about your own personal experience, I guarantee the people who you never thought would ask you or say, hey, I feel the same way, will ask you, I will say, I feel the same way, or say, thank you. That ties back into, I'm saying that you are in a different position than most people. You have relationships built with individuals, clients, members, your social platform. They have trust. They look at you as for guidance. It's not about changing the world. It's about speaking if it's affecting you. And I have to stress, if it's not affecting you and you say that it is, they will know. If we lack sincerity about this, what's happening now, and try to jump on a bandwagon and say it affects you and it doesn't, it will come out like that too. But if you say that it is, whether you're white, black, green, we all have that empathy and common bond that we don't want to hurt anyone. Tony?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Julio, and you and I are in very similar positions in that we have a digital media presence, and that we have influence and reach with people not only locally but spread out. And I've been over the past week just trying to figure out, what do I need to do? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to say anything? I generally don't get into the comment sections in social media. I generally don't do that. Very rarely do I ever speak out on issues like this on my platform. But I came to the conclusion I have to say something. I also was getting the texts and the emails from people I haven't heard from. Are you okay? So I decided, yeah, I do have to say something. And it really with me, it really comes down to this, and that there's so much going on with the civil rights issue, the cops, the legal system, what needs to be done, all of that. And I'm not sure if that is the avenue that I need to go down. I think what people essentially need to hear is from people like me and you is, yes, we felt it. We felt that in our lives at some point in time. Some people might want to go into detail about very specific events. I'm not sure if I need to go that deep, but I think they need to hear it from us and saying, yes, I have felt that many times in my life in the past and even in the present, where I felt some form of racism, prejudice, bias, unconscious bias, all of it, right? And the challenging part of it is, number one, you can't empirically prove it, right? But it's something. I think people need to hear it from us, that it's something that you feel. It's something that you feel, and then as a Black person or a minority, you sort of, over the years you've been living in your body, you sort of develop this finely tuned radar for it, and you feel it. And I think just being able to say something like that speaks volumes as a leader, and people on your platform, people who follow you, need to be able to hear that, and they need to be able to understand what type of person you are and what type of platform of inclusivity you're building, and what type of mindset you're building across your entire platform, so that they know what type of platform they're on. And if they're not on board with it, maybe, you have to say goodbye to some of those folks.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's my assessment of it. Over the past week, I've been formulating some of that in all of my positions. And, probably by tomorrow or Monday, I'm trying to make a formal statement in some way on my platform.
That does. So that ties to bring it back to how I started this. The main point is what I'm trying to impress upon everyone here, and anyone who's going to watch this, is if you're a health and fitness leader, not even you're a leader. If you're a trainer, coach, group X, doesn't matter. Director, you are looked as a leader for the person you are working with. When you are asked if it's affecting you, how are you? Take that moment to say how you feel and how it's affecting you. If it is, you're in a position where you can say, if you want to talk about this, let's discuss. And it's 100% okay to say, I don't know what to do either. So the other elephant in the room, there's a different conversation between a white person and a white trainer, or a white person, a white client, and oops, sorry, this thing just came up. A white client and someone of minority. What's the difference? So when I was asked, how is this affecting you? Have you ever happened to you? And I said, yes. So I've lived it. My family members lived it. I know people who have, meaning the racism, called the names. And I know that it's going to happen again. But that's neither here nor there. The most important thing is that we're talking and acknowledging. The conversation, regardless of skin tone of us and the people in our sphere of influence, it's not about the color at that point. It's just bringing it up and saying that I am here to talk to be a resource, if that makes any sense. And you are more than welcome to point them to my direction if they want to learn more about it. Secondly, I am also realizing that a lot of companies now are posting, and I ask that you guys can do this too and share with us. There are resources now for businesses, employers, of what to do, what not to do, and things like that. That's one way to be a resource. The other way to be a resource is just to make yourself approachable and available. I hope that kind of, I'm trying to keep it grassroots. I'm not about changing government, changing this or that. I'm talking about working within our sphere of influence. And does anyone want to chime in on that?
I have a question for you, and or Tony. So I grew up in Essex, Mass, home of the fried clam, and I went to school out in Iowa. So I am the first to acknowledge that I was not exposed to any diversity pretty much at all up until really starting to work in the city. So the struggle that I've had in being a leader in my club and in a club in the city too has been a challenge, because to your point, Julio, like not knowing how to approach the conversation on its own, but also because I've never had those experiences. Like I don't want to end up being insensitive to somebody or prying or asking questions that are more sensitive than maybe I think they are based on my very, very limited experience. So what do you both feel are and Julio, you alluded to a couple of these already, but if I'm speaking to another white person or if I'm speaking to somebody of color, to me, I kind of just never know what types of questions are appropriate to ask in a way that shows the support that I'm sure from only what I can imagine in my limited, experience, they're feeling. Does that make sense? That was a very long-winded question.
Tony can go, or anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I always start with, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable in whatever setting that you have, right? So if you have a group setting or small group setting, or you're a team, The question really is, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel included? Articulating your philosophy and approach behind inclusivity, right? So I always am very vocal if I'm working with a group, which I do a lot, and I'm very vocal about the fact that it's an all-inclusive group, no matter how big, small, gender, sexual orientation, race. We're an all-inclusive group, and it becomes part of the philosophy and the culture of your practice and in your platform, and encourage open dialogue with anyone for whatever reason who might feel that that they are they have a question about it. I'll give you one example. I'm a swim coach, and I came into swimming as an adult, learned, became a master swim coach, became a lifeguard, and became a teacher of other swimmers. Very infrequently do you ever see Black adults swim as much as white adults, and so this is something that is a constant concern among minority athletes that I train and coach. Right, something to the effect of I think it's 78% of African American adults report low or no swimming ability, and it's a big problem because it affects participation in the sport, swimming and triathlon, and it's talked about a lot. It's it affects the participation rates in the sport. So if someone comes into, I have a Black athlete, and they don't see anybody like them around them in the small group setting or training setting or race setting, it affects them. So I just foster an environment of open dialogue to try to figure out how we can change that. How can we increase participation rates? How can we do more reach out events, and I always come back to just encouraging an environment of open dialogue, if that makes any sense or help.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I've never met you. I don't know you very well, but and it is obviously a complicated, messy topic that, goes back from the very moment that our country was founded. But I think that something kind of that's important to remember is just to come back to love and empathy. So if you're in an uncomfortable situation, if you're in a situation, you're not really sure what to do or what to say, well, just make sure whatever you're doing, check yourself. And what I think is so important for all of us to do right now is to cleanse our hearts and to make sure that any little crevice, there's no room for hate right now. And so when you're in a situation, whatever you can do to come to the other person from a place of empathy, love, understanding, and just keep casting out the hate and encouraging that, and keep trying to tie that into as many conversations that you can possibly, and just be in love. And I don't mean to try to simplify a beyond complicated issue, but I do deeply believe that when in doubt, just love and empathy.
Can I throw something in there, and just if any of you guys agree with this, right? So we're in very, very different times. This is not like a year ago. This is it's real. The opportunity, like I'm trying to have like a sense of urgency of what's happening. So that's why I'm big on like today is the day. Not discussing or not bringing it up or not acknowledging between me and my clients of what's happening, I personally believe perpetuates the cycle. It perpetuates a belief on their side then I'm okay. I am not affected. And I can say that even as of today, I had a conversation with someone and they said to me, how is that affecting you? You're not African American. And then I shared, it's actually more than, it's about people of color, minorities. And she said, I didn't know that. See where I'm going with this? So it's not about, I'm all about just taking it wherever it goes, taking the opportunity. When you are asked, how are you, with your clients, is to say how you feel. And if they're referring to what's happening right now, because that's the elephant in the room. That is the elephant in the room. Say, hey, can we take one moment out of our session? And then just to make sure you're aware that I don't know what to do either, but I'm actually participating in this forum so I can get more information, more knowledge, more support. And I would share that with you. Because if that person wanted to learn a specific exercise or corrective exercise or et cetera, what would you do? I'm gonna go learn. So why not in this state of affairs, use that as an opportunity. We leverage the empathy that we have, that they know we have, and the trust that we built to just, and if someone says, I'm not interested or let's move on, then that's how it goes. Because anytime someone shows willingness to want to talk about something, that's when we talk about it. We're talking about this current of affairs, not other things. So I personally don't want to perpetuate the cycle, and it can be discussed at other times. And what all of you are doing now, and if you're watching, it takes courage. This takes courage to step out. It's uncomfortable. I'm still uncomfortable talking about it, you know, but I've learned that me talking about it more and more is helping me better, be a little bit more articulate and just keeping it simple. That, yeah, it's real and it's okay. It's okay to say, I don't know. And so that's kind of where, hopefully you got something out of what I'm trying to say. Just asking, is the current affairs affecting you? And I'll put this out there too. If you have, and this is perfectly fine because I had this fear before I posted online. I use myself as an example. That's the only person. I had a fear. If I post anything, it's not inflammatory, just saying, you know, that I have a forum. Even at posting something about having a forum about racism, I'm like, is my personal safety at risk? Yeah. Am I going to get retribution? Is my people who I know, like professionally, they're going to come at me? You know, why are you doing? Am I going to lose money? So at the end of the day, I knew for a fact that there's more what I'm going to gain from it than rather what I'm going to lose. Because this is the time for me to do what I can and leverage the relationships I built. It's not to change people's mind, it's to plant seeds. Does that make sense what I'm trying to get at? It has nothing to do with changing, it's a process. Everyone's at a different place. Essex, Mass, wherever, you know, people live, have different backgrounds. I personally have family members that look at people with my complexion and darker as inferior. That's true. So it's everywhere. It's not white on minority, it's everywhere. So what did I do? So I use myself as an example. I texted some of my family members, the younger. I said, if you want to talk about the current state of affairs, I'm available. You know how many replied? Not many, because it's very uncomfortable. But I made myself available, you know, and hopefully you can gather what I'm trying to say is that there is a sense of urgency, and we don't have to have like something major. It just starts with the conversation. You know, how is this affecting you? You go from there, and I'll come back to the beginning, and then I will stop talking. I strongly suggest to start with your family, then start with your friends, then with your friends, and then go out from there. Throughout that process, you're going to grow in a different way you didn't think it was possible, in your understanding of what's happening to yourself and how it impacts you, and how we can be of service. Hey, David, nice to see you. Anyone like to say anything? Regina?
I'll add Julio, if that's all right.
Rock?
So, hey, Dave, thanks for joining us. Good to see you again. I think with these, just like anything that's really important to talk about, It requires a lot of thought. And when that happens, you enter into conversation where you're risking offending the other person. It's the nature of it. So that is scary for a lot of people, and I think that you avoid your problems by doing that. And when you avoid your problems, they build up and they fester and we don't get to the root of it. And it goes on and nothing really happens. And so I think the biggest point about this is I agree with you on one hand, Julio, but I disagree on the other, respectfully, in just saying that I think we need to talk to other people. We should be pushed to talk to other people than our immediate family and friends, only because you get a little bit of confirmation bias. We all have bias, whether we like to admit it or not, we all do. And so if I talk to only people who are exactly like me, it's kind of like, oh, I guess there's no big deal here, no problem. It must not be that bad because we all think the same and we don't know. I've been white for 34 years, but I've never been a minority in my life. So I don't know what's going on, really. So I think the best thing we can do is to talk to people who are not like us at all and understand some different ideas. And then maybe that we'll be able to see it in a different light and maybe at least understand what's going on a little bit better so that we can move forward. That's just my take on it. But that's what I tried to do, and to hear from as many people as I can on matters like this, other than just my own thoughts with my own bias that happens with everyone.
Oh, I like what you said, and there's no wrong or right answer. I'm just sharing my own personal experience. And one of the most powerful things that I've learned, because when I ask a family member, especially it doesn't matter if they're fair skinned, they can say nothing's happening, there's no problem. That speaks volume. So when I know within my own family that they're saying there's no problem, that's part of me accepting, acknowledging, and then just saying, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm available so I can share how it affects me. And there is no right or wrong way if you start outside your family. The whole point is just to initiate a conversation when someone asks, how are you? And then you can say, this is affecting me. How is it affecting you? If my mother says that, I will ask her, how are you? How is it affecting you, Mom? And I hear. So that practice of me doing that with someone intimate helps build this. And then it builds that ability to have more empathy as I start to talk about it more. That's all I'm asking, is just to start to talk about it.
I think that's a great point, Julio. And I think you're right. I'm thinking about my own personal experience again, right? So like if I talk to my family members, they're going to have they may have the same bias as me. So in your situation, it sounds like it's a little bit different. So I think we just have to be honest with ourselves and who our friends and family are, and would they possibly challenge us intellectually about this situation in any way? And if yes, then talk to those people. And if not, and if there won't be really any growth from it, then maybe we reach out to some other people that will really challenge us to answer these sensitive questions that could, that you risk yourself of offending people, but it has to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's over. We can't do anything about it.
Just to piggyback on that, I think it's important because over the last week, I've seen an outpouring of support from people, right? But here's the thing. I saw one meme that was very interesting. I don't know where it originated from, but I saw it on LinkedIn, and it said, all of the blackout posts, the blackout squares, all of the Black Lives Matter memes, they're all great, but kindly share a picture of your executive team, right? So the message there was, it's easy to post some meme on your Facebook feeds and then sort of pat yourself on the back, then you did something good. Do you have diversity in your executive team, if you have an executive team or if you have a team, right? Do you have diversity in your groups, if you have groups? Are you taking stock every day in trying to reach out to Black and brown people, right? Because anybody can post something on a social media page, and that's sort of called slacktivism, right? Where someone posts something and then they feel really good about that post. But what are these people doing on a daily basis to really be advocates of change? And that's also how you challenge people, and that's one of the things that I'm going to try to highlight when I make my statement. And I'm going to say, look, all the memes, all the posts, putting Black Lives Matter as your profile picture, all that's great, but what are you doing, right? So
Yeah, Tony,
Tony,
I think that was Laura, at least I had just reshared that actually. Laura Silva, I saw posted that. And I'm in a course about managing diverse teams right now, coincidentally. And it is really interesting to think about the actions behind your thought processes, like the things that you actually value and care about, but then like what are you doing within the scope of your ability to make those changes? So like I don't own my company, but I do work for a very supportive company that does stand behind a lot of these movements. So it's like, okay, so now what can I do to get involved to show more support and leverage my relationship with my company to make because our company is predominantly, I would say, Julio and Dave, Brock, predominantly white, at least at our location, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the other clubs, but I don't really know them well enough. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more that we can be doing for sure.
Sorry, I was just.
Go ahead, Brock.
I'm sorry.
I
I was just going to add. I apologize for interrupting. I didn't mean to step on you, Tony. I was just going to add to what you're saying. I think it's this virtue-seeking mentality that many people have come into, and it's the thing you see with like all the white guilt stuff. It's like don't make minorities, allow say that it's okay for you to. Oh well, we give you a pass. Stop asking. It's ridiculous. You can't be more offended than the victim. And I think we need to get over that and really get to the root of the problem instead of patting ourselves on the back for, well, I care more. Well, no, I care more. It's just ridiculous, and it's not helping anything.
Yeah, agreed. Good point.
I think another way to generate dialogue, in addition to, because you might say, hey, how are you? And a lot of people don't really know how they are or can't articulate how they're feeling right now. But another way to go about it might be, look at this clip, look at this article, look at this reading, and then almost like it's almost like a book club, like between two people, you share something and then you both share your thoughts, and that article can be, and sharing the article can be planting the seed, and then from there, so much magic can come from that, and it can lead to a really productive conversation. And there's obviously a lot of stuff to filter through, right? But at the same time, I'm finding that there's a lot of powerful stuff circulating right now, and whether it's an interview or an article. So I think that especially now when we're still for the most part isolated at home, and if you can't get together with people to have conversations about it, a nice thing to do is send an article, email someone an article, be like, how'd you feel about that, and then go from there.
I had a conversation with someone this morning. He's actually a major influencer in the fitness industry. He's a huge social media following, but he's the real deal. He has the exercise background, all that stuff. And he was unwilling to share on his social media because he was unsure of the response. So I'm not talking about like five, I mean like hundreds of thousands of followers. So the only way that I got to learn about this, right, is because the conversation started. It was about this forum, and I said, well, I ended up speaking with him over the phone. Is what I'm getting at. The conversation between one person to another is the best transmission line we have. Anything online, a text, post can be taken out of context, always, even with the best intention. And this individual, this is how I looked at it. He made time to reply. But once someone makes time to reply or engage, that's the opportunity to say, let's discuss. I didn't know where it was going to go. And then that person got to understand what I was doing, what's this about. He's white. And he had a fear that whatever he posted was going to have a bad response or a negative towards the business, the image. We talked and he posted. So what I'm getting at, never underestimate the power of conversation and transmission between you, your client. If you post it, I don't minimize anything. Someone post the blackout and all that, with stuff like that. If you want to take it to another level, you say, hey, if anyone's interested in learning about my experience or how it affects me, reach out to me, DM me. If you put that with any supportive meme or post or quotes, and you literally put, if you have any questions about why I'm posting it, reach out to me. Does that make you vulnerable? Or make me vulnerable? Yes, it does. Does it make me available? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. So I'm just trying to throw out ideas out there. Dave, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, I mean, the only that I've noticed that has been kind of powerful is my son Charlie's response to everything, because he really has no idea what's going on. He's only 6, but he sees it and people talk about it, and he asked me basically what was happening, and I just the best way I could try to explain to him that some people just aren't treated right. People aren't treated the way that they're supposed to be treated, like how you treat your friends in school, because I mean he has such a diverse friendship group, and I wish we could all have more of that. That speaks volumes. But he understood, but I think that's where it starts. I think it's all about educating and re-educating and re-educating us, the ones that should know better, and then educating the ones that are a clean slate. That's what I really try to set him off the right way, and to have him realize that having all these friends is fantastic, and treating people like you want to be treated is the way that we have to live.
That's I value you guys' time, so that's going to take me to the last segment. We have about 5 to 8 minutes. How I wanted to end this is with this thought. This is my belief. Hate and racism can be unlearned. I don't need this right now. So that can be unlearned. And the ability for us to help that process with anyone, we don't even know who, if we post something, we don't know who's reaching it. We don't, literally, right? By planting seeds of what we're doing. And then if they want to engage and discuss more, that's their journey of unlearning whatever they learned throughout the years. Hopefully this makes sense. So I'm saying that there's always hope, and never underestimate what you do. Is never minimize it. Doing this is absolutely powerful. And as I started earlier, I said your presence is a reflection of your personal and professional network, because you're literally speaking for people who can't speak for themselves. Because they're like, I want to help, but I don't know what to say. I have a fear. I don't want to jump into the ring. People are going to look at me. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And each and every one of us, if you share that, you participate and be like, wow, what did you get out of it? Then you're planting seeds. You follow me? I would like to give everyone like a last word, maybe a minute or two. Regina, you can start.
Julio, I will jump in. Thank you. What you said just it touches on thought of to the marijuana being legalized recently. It seems to me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but until a bunch of white people spoke up and said, hey, we want minorities that were incarcerated and fined, and whatever the case may be, for trying to promote this, and then it was legal, and then things got done, and I think that's kind of where we're at now. Is that we need
Uh-oh.
prioritizing race, or it never seems that the pushers, but it hasn't lasted, and we want to make something last. So until a bunch of, you know, people of color, people of not, I have a color, my color is white. So until we all stand up and say that this is outrageous, you know, but it's prioritizing the race, because I'll tell you, Brock, I'm sorry to jump around a lot. Brock mentioned something about not being a minority. You look at me and you see my color of white, but I have been the victim of other isms, sexism. I've been the victim of domestic abuse. I've been, you know, I'm a woman. I remember you know, not being able to play sports, and you know that law got passed like right before I was born. So having that opportunity, having the opportunity to vote wasn't there for me for a long time, although I never experienced it. So those struggles are just of a different nature. And I think with the recent events, it has catapulted this priority to light, and that's what it is. It's like there are other disparities, there are other isms, but this one is something that needs to be brought to the table right here, right now, before any more goes forward. And because you can't deal with everything all at once, you know. So just my thoughts.
Yeah, excellent. So I would like to give everyone 1 to 2 minutes.
Oh, I have something. I just want to thank you, Julio, for doing this and making this to your point, it does take courage to do this. And I think when people open up a forum and open the conversation and allow people like me that don't have that, like the same type of experience, to openly ask me questions and not feel judged for it, it makes me feel more support. So then I feel more comfortable talking to more people about it. And I think ultimately, like, that's what I was hoping to get out of this, was to have the ability to be more, not confident, but comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations without fear of like being judged for being ignorant or whatever. Because to I forget who said it, I think Brock said it, we all have our preconceived snap judgments on people. It's just something that we're all born with. And I think things like this can help to break those barriers. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to do it.
Thank you. Tony, Brock, or Sarah?
Yeah, thanks again for putting this together. I think, you know, we do have some immediate things that we need to triage and correct and identify. And, you know, I think some of that will just need to play itself out. More conversation, more discussion, more personal experiences are always going to be helpful from people like us. But ultimately, I think we need to have some form of North Star to look out for. I mean, we will never be completely 100% devoid of racism, right? Anyway, in the same way, we'll never be 100% devoid of, say, you know, something like a killing or murder. I mean, it's always going to be part of society. So the point is now, if racism is always going to be there, some form of bias or prejudice is always going to be there. What's our North Star? What do we look forward to? How do we work together, live together, be together? And I think that's the question that we really should be focused on trying to solve. What's the North Star? I don't know the answer. I don't have all the answer, but perhaps working together, we can come up with something.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, Tony, I think to your point, I mean, we can see this as analogous to any other type of disease that, you know, that afflicts a certain people, and a medication or treatment has to come to us, and it still may not eradicate it completely, but we need to find something that's going to be more effective than what we have now. You know, so it's just, and I apologize to Regina if if it seemed as though I was leaving other people out, but right now we're talking about racism. So when I say, when I don't mention everything, I don't mean to say that, you know, sexism is not an issue as well, but just currently we are talking about racism. So I just want to make that clear as well. But yeah, I think this is, it needs to be looked at as a disease, and how are we going to do that? What are we going to do? What are the treatments? What are the remedies? What are the therapies that are going to get us in the right direction? And I think the number one thing is understanding each other. Where are you coming from? I mean, Tony, you mentioned earlier, like a lot of people that you hadn't talked to in a while, all of a sudden text you, are you okay? Well, that says a little bit, right? You just don't understand. It's not that there probably there was no ill will there, but certainly that doesn't come across the way that those senders of those messages meant for it to, right? I'm sure that you got that and was like, oh, now you're asking me if I'm okay. Well, racism is not a new thing. You didn't just find out about this over the weekend. So yeah, I'm sure you're okay, but let's talk about it and figure it out and move forward. I think it's an understanding thing, and people just struggle to really have honest conversations with each other because nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. I mean, you don't want to offend anybody, but it's a risk that we need to take to make sure that we get where we're coming from. And that's why I think forums like this are fantastic. So Julio, I really appreciate you putting this together, and for you all participating. I think it's great.
Thank you. So I'm going to end how I began, to never underestimate your sphere of influence. That's what we can work with. It's the most powerful thing that we have available today, not next week. Acknowledging or using the opportunity when someone says, how are you? To ask, you know, if this current affairs are affecting you, and then you can go from there. That in itself is powerful. It's even more powerful, I think, as a person who's not color white brings that up with their client. I think that shows that's a whole different level, because it's probably more expected for someone for like me to say to my white friends or clients or et cetera, to say, is this affecting you? Rather, you know where I'm going with this? So it's an amazing opportunity to be that stone that if you throw it in the puddle or in the lake and you see the ripples, if you're that stone, you just throw it with the question and it will ripple out. We don't have control. And then we start to plant the seeds to the receiving end. Is like, wow, he or she asked me, how is this affecting me? No one has asked me that ever in their world, in their family. Get someone, and now I can speak to this person if I wish to. And so this comes to the end of the forum. And since social media and everything, I came up with a hashtag. It's not my hashtag. I saw this cool little picture, and it's about what we are. The person's on the edge of a cliff, and then there's another cliff, and it's what we want to be. And it's called leap of faith. Make the jump. What we are and what we want to be. And that little thing, and the person's going to do it. So I'm going to suggest to have a hashtag of leap of faith. What we are and what we want to be. Make that jump. So I want to thank everyone for participating. I hope to have future ones. I will upload this to the internet. And if you don't have any questions, I want to say thank you, and I have you all in my thoughts and prayers. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Julio. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.